Hey guys, Marsningan here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so we are continuing on with the Extreme Super Battle Road guides, trying to get these all up before the event comes out. So make sure you are subscribed, hit that like button and the bell notification so you know when these new videos go up. All the guides should be up before the stage comes out. So we are moving on to stage 16, which is Hybrid Saiyans. So Hybrid Saiyans is obviously a very large category. As you can see, there is a ton of units to choose from, some better for Super Battle Road than others. So just like the rest of the videos, we will be going through my top picks as well as some honorable mentions for the best units to bring into this mode. So of course, how could we not start off with the Tech Gohan? Still considered to be one of the best units in the game. He's super good. The guarding, obviously, when you're in category Super Battle Road, is incredibly useful because you're fighting enemies of all different typings. And then as soon as you get one super attack off, you're starting to build up that attack and defense, which is able to reach pretty crazy high levels. So if you bring a friend that's got dupes, obviously if you can get like an additional super on turn 1, he's already looking really good both offensively and defensively. So his links are the number one thing that people complain about, but Hybrid Saiyans has a lot of really good support units, and there's a lot of links that are shared like across the category by a bunch of different units that are going to help you know, each other out. He is a little bit self-sufficient. He gives himself 1 key at the start of each turn up to a maximum of 3. So you shouldn't have too much trouble super attacking with him. But I would say if you're going to run the double Gohan leads build, which I do think is probably the best way to go, you definitely want to bring some support units to help out with the key. And obviously if you do get to turn 5, which in Super Battle Road, not impossible, Super Battle Road fights, ESBR specifically, you're probably looking at maybe turn 5 or 6 is the longest you're going to go, depending on how powerful your team is. So if you do reach turn 5, you'll be able to transform him up to Ultimate Gohan, and then basically at that point, like if you haven't won by then Gohan's probably going to come in and seal the deal for you. So it's very likely that you might get all the way through the entire stage, all the fights, without actually seeing him transform, but he's perfectly good and effective in his just Team Gohan form. So the other major leader we have is the Int Future Gohan, who is pretty good. He greatly raises defense on his super attack, so he can tank reasonably well. He reduces damage received by 58% when your HP is 58% or less. So if you're going into the turn already pretty damaged, then he can tank really well, especially after that super attack. And then he gives Bond of Master and Disciple category allies Key 1 and 30% attack and defense. So there's a lot of Trunks and Gohan units on this team that will be in that category, so we'll be able to get a buff from him. Now, he can transform, but you do have to have a Future Trunks on the team. There are a couple of solid ones to bring, so obviously it doesn't include Kid or GT versions of Trunks. And that is from the 4th turn. He can transform up to Super Saiyan. He definitely becomes a lot more effective. His damage reduction is guaranteed, and he now raises attack on Super Attack. But like we were saying with the Gohan, you're probably not going to get massively far into the event. Turn 4 is not as big of an ask, so you probably will be able to see him transform if you bring a Trunks on the team. You may just be running this guy for the leader skill, and you know, that's a perfectly fine way to use him. He's got a very good leader skill for Hybrid Saiyans. We're not including the STR, Ultimate Gohan, because his leader skill is probably the worst out of the actual 170 leads, and him as a unit is just super unreliable. But if you have to use him as your leader, then he is there. But I haven't even included him on this list because I don't think you should be running him on your team pretty much at all unless you absolutely have to. So following up with him, we have this guy here. So before we get into the LRs, I wanted to talk about this Trunks because he does have a 120 leader skill for Hybrid Saiyans, but also gives 4 key, which is quite useful. So if you don't have any of the 170 leaders, this guy and then bringing like a Tech Gohan friend would be a very solid build. He raises attack and defense for 1 turn. If you're not getting the partner super, has a medium chance to stun. If you are getting the partner super, he greatly raises his attack and still normally raises defense, does immense damage, and has a high chance to stun. So obviously in Super Battle Road, very useful. And the way to get his partner super is to have a Youth Gohan attacking in the same turn. Now obviously we have a couple of very good Youth Gohans that we're going to get to in a moment, but He's a very solid unit, 200% attack and defense, has a medium chance to launch an additional super, which plays really nicely off of the fact that he can stun, and he gives Hybrid Saiyan allies 3 ki and 40% attack and defense. So he is pretty much like a must-run support unit for Hybrid Saiyans, even if you're not using a Youth Gohan on the team. But obviously if you are, every time he floats into the 3rd slot on that particular rotation, he's going to be able to get the partner super, do a little bit more damage, have more of a chance to stun, and so he's going to be very, very effective. And like I said, he's going to be okay as a fill-in leader as well if you're missing the actual 170 lead Gohans. So moving on to the LRs, who are of course 2 of them Gohan youths, we have the AGL Gohan, who starts off as Super Saiyan, basically never transforms into Super Saiyan 2. I don't think you can transform in this stage. Let's have a quick look at who the enemies actually are for Hybrid Saiyans. Yep, so there's not going to be any stages where you can actually transform him up to Super Saiyan 2. But fortunately, in his Super Saiyan 1 form, he is still very good. I think a lot of people overlook that. I know everyone is very disappointed that his Super Saiyan 2 form is so hard to see, but in Super Saiyan 1, he is still very good. He infinitely stacks his defense. He gets extra ki and attack and defense at the start of each turn, so just like someone like Kale and Caulifla we talked about in the Peppy Gals guide, he's a bit of a liability on turn 1, especially without a defensive item active, but he builds up very, very quickly and then becomes very effective, especially defensively, so he is a very solid option. And then of course the flip side to that is we have the Tech Super Saiyan 2 LR Gohan, and his role is of course being an absolute damage dealing machine. So he is a nuking style unit, but as long as you can pick up a reasonable amount of orbs, he can do a ton of damage. He gets extra ki with the orbs that he picks up, so you don't have to worry too much if there's not many orbs for him to collect. He can still get his 18 ki super fairly easily. He does raise defense on both of his super attacks as well, and of course he does have a built-in chance to additional super. So if you have dupes or skill orbs, he can super attack 3 times in one turn, and each one of those raises his defense. So if you do get one of those turns with multiple supers, his defense actually raises to a very decent level, and if you're able to pick up enough orbs, he's actually able to have very solid defense even before super attacking. So if you can get into a situation where you can pick up a ton of orbs with him, then after supers, his defense is going to be insanely high. Now obviously on this team you can't run a movie hero Goku, or any Goku, because it's the Hybrid Saiyans team, so you can't take advantage of his full passive or his active skill, unfortunately. But he is still a very, very good unit even without that. I've showcased him at level 10 links on a Super Saiyan 2 team without a Goku to work with, and he's still really, really good even in that setup. So he can still be very good. And if you have him and the AGL LR on rotation, and then that STR Trunks that we were talking about floats in, that rotation is going to be insanely powerful. So this guy is definitely near the top of my list of units to bring for this stage. So then we move on to the good old Go Bros. They've fallen off a little bit. I see people underrating them all the time now, but they are still really, really good. People don't like the fact that they take a while to build up, and their links aren't the best. So in the first and potentially even second turn, depending on the orb field, you might struggle to get their 18 ki super, but they can super attack multiple times each turn, and even their 12 ki super, they're able to hit pretty reasonable attack stats, because obviously each time they attack, they build up more and more. So again, maybe not as impressive on turn 1, but as you get into the event, they do build up and become incredibly powerful. And then of course, starting from the 3rd turn, as long as you have 1 enemy remaining, if you drop below 59% HP and you start the turn, you can use the Family Kamehameha active skill, which does a ton of damage. Basically just like the Super Saiyan 4s that we talked about previously. It's just free damage, so it's a little bit harder to get because you have to have only 1 enemy left and be below a certain amount of HP, but it's a ton of extra damage that you get to do for free, so obviously very, very helpful. Then we have the B-Pan. Now unfortunately it looks like Global is not getting her Easy A alongside JP, but even pre-Easy A she's still really, really good. Her biggest issue, which they did fix with her Easy A, but we're not getting that, is the fact that her damage reduction is only RNG based. She has a high chance of reducing damage by 55%. If that doesn't go off, she actually does take a lot of damage, and in a way it doesn't offset the amount of healing that she gives you, because she does 33% of damage dealt recovers as HP. So if you get like double supers with her and she crits on those, you get a ton of healing back from her. But then, as I say, in the follow-up, if her passive doesn't activate and she then gets hit a couple of times, she'll probably lose you all of that health that you just got back, if not slightly more. So you've got to be very careful when using her. If you're going to put her in a slot where she's facing a whole bunch of attacks, it might be wise to use an item just in case. And then, of course, she has her active skill, which you can just use on turn 3. Gives everyone a massive attack buff, which with this team, considering some of the powerful units that we have, you could very easily just finish off the fight on that 3rd turn when you use her active skill. So next up, we have the AGL Trunks and Goten. So these are the new units that are coming out on the banner tonight. I believe this unit is on Vegeta's banner. And I had to include them here because they are actually one of the best Hybrid Saiyan support units in the game. They're very similar to that STR Trunks because not only are they very solid, free key and 150% to stats, then they get an additional 40% attack when performing a super, so they can hit pretty hard. They get an additional super attack that has a medium additional attack that has a medium chance of becoming a super, so they can double super even at 55%. And of course, with the free hidden potential system, because they're an AGL unit, at 55% they could actually super attack 3 times in one turn, which is pretty good because they infinitely stack attack and defense on super. Now, the reason why they're so good is because the last part of their passive here, they give Goku family allies 3 key and 40% HP attack and defense, and they give Vegeta family allies 3 key and 40% attack and defense. Well, every single unit on the Hybrid Saiyans category is either a Goku family or a Vegeta family unit. So, for the sake of this particular stage, on this particular team that is full Hybrid Saiyans, their passive might as well say Hybrid Saiyans 3 key and 40% attack and defense. So they're going to be very, very good. So if you are summoning on the new banners and you pull them, once you've got them awakened and everything, they're going to be very good for this stage. So then we have the good old Icarus Gohan. You guys probably know him by now. We used him in the Super Tech video. He's not the best. He doesn't do a lot of damage. He gets hit really, really hard. But he does have a built-in chance to dodge. He can stun the enemy. And then most importantly, if you start the turn on 30% HP or less, he gives you a full heal. So that is basically the only reason you bring him on the team. Because the stun chance isn't that high. The dodge chance depends on which slot you put him in. Not ideal to put him in slot 1, to be honest. Because he does need to attack first in order to proc that. So if you put him in slot 1, any attacks before he attacks, he doesn't have that 50% chance to dodge. And he does take a lot of damage, so you've got to be very careful. But as an emergency heal, he can be very useful. And he can stun, which is very good in Super Battle Road as well. So Bulla is here. We mentioned her in the Peppy Gals video. She's not as good on a non-Peppy Gals team because if she's the only Peppy Gals unit, she only has a 30% chance to dodge and her defense is basically non-existent. So if she doesn't dodge, she will take a ton of damage. So I wouldn't even necessarily recommend bringing her if you have those other support options that we've mentioned, but she is a pretty decent support unit if you don't have anyone else to fill in for that role. So then we have the Int Gotenks. This guy, and then same with the Gotenks and Ghost. I feel like we don't need to go over them that much because we've already mentioned them in the Fusion Guide and we'll probably mention them again at some other point. They fall into that category of if you can run them on the stage, you should run them on your team. So obviously you can run them on Hybrid Saiyans, so you should bring them. Because Gotenks greatly raises defense. As soon as he goes up to Super Saiyan on turn 3, he still greatly raises defense. He has a chance to get a ton of attack and defense in his passive, and he has a 70% chance to stun on his super attack. And then, of course, Gotenks and Ghost, they have a 50% chance to stun. They create rainbow orbs and can give you a very significant amount of healing from those orbs. And then, of course, post Easy A, especially after their super, their defense is actually really, really good. So both of these units, if you have them, I would say are pretty much auto-includes on any team. So therefore, you should be using them for this stage as well. So next up, we have the Int Spirit Sword Trunks. Post Easy A, he's pretty solid. There's not a huge amount to say about him, but he does create his own int orbs, although he nukes based on any type of orbs you pick up. So he can be pretty good. He does also change key orbs to rainbow if there's a Realm of Gods enemy, which there is not on this particular build, so we don't need to worry about that too much. But he's just overall a fairly solid unit. He's not crazy, but he's one of those units that kind of gets the honorable mention if you just need to fill the 6th slot on your team. Plus, of course, he is a non-kid Trunks if you are running the future Gohan to get his transformation. So then we have high school Gohan. I don't know why he's so low in the list, probably because I was opening up the units as they're listed on the wiki and STR is a lot further down. Because this guy could very easily be like first on the list after the leaders. This is an absolute must-run unit on every single team that you can run him on. He is one of the best super type support units in the game. Not only does he give the 30% attack and defense and 2 key, but he reduces damage by 58%, so he can tank reasonably well, and he can stun. So he's just really, really good. He supports everybody else, he's not a liability, and he can stun, which is, again, as we've said multiple times, super good for Super Battle Road. So I don't really need to say much about this guy. It is literally a case of, if you have him, he should be on the team. That is as simple as that. So then we have this Gohan. He's pretty good, the Super Saiyan Great Saiyan Man. The thing about him, you've got to be careful. It depends how you build your team. So if you're using like the Gotenks, you're using High School Gohan, you're using Tech Ultimate Gohan, all of these guys are from Majin Buu Saga. And he gives super type Majin Buu Saga units 2 key and 30% attack and defense. He can seal the enemy as well, which is very useful. So I think if you don't have many Majin Buu Saga units on the team build that you run, he's definitely not going to be as useful, but he is a pretty solid unit overall. So I think maybe you don't need to worry about bringing him if you don't have many Buu Saga units, but if you do, he's a very good unit to bring, even if you're just using him as a 3rd slot float, because he can be pretty good in that final spot and isn't going to be a massive liability to get you killed. Now obviously if you've got no item active, he's probably still going to take some reasonable damage, especially from a super, but he's not one of those, like, you know, support units that's made of glass like Buller, for example. And then finally, the last honourable mention is the physical support Trunks. After his Easy A, he's very, very solid. As long as you have another Vegeta family unit on the team, he's really good. Now, the problem is, he does share the same name with some of the really good Trunkses. So, you know, without another Trunks on the team, or a Buller, because you need that other Vegeta family unit, he's not going to be as good, because he doesn't get his own attack and defense unless you have that. So, again, I feel like he's kind of a last resort support unit. When he first Easy A'd, he was really good. Like, even some of the harder content that was available at that time, he was still pretty good defensively. But for ESBR, not so much. So if we look back over here, to look for some other Trunkses, we've got like the LR Trunks, you know, doesn't really hold his own defensively anymore. This Tech Trunks is a really good unit for long form events, but in Super Battle Road, like especially on turn 1, he's just really not that great. So he is a unit that you can bring, especially if you need another Vegeta family unit if you want to bring that physical support Trunks, and he is going to fulfill that role for getting the Int Future Gohan to transform. But again, his utility is better suited for longer form events, so I don't think he's super great in Super Battle Road. And then really, when it comes to everybody else, like, there are some okay TURs that you can fill slots with, but nobody else jumps out as being super good. Obviously, this Gotenks we talked about in Fusion as well provides a buff to all allies when there's multiple enemies. I didn't mention the Prime Battle Trunks. He is good when there are multiple enemies, but he's probably the next in line Prime Battle unit to get an Easy A, and I think until he gets it, he's probably a little bit of a defensive liability when it comes to Super Battle Road, but he could still be useful on the team, and he is free to play, so more people are likely to have him. So let me know what your team build is going to be down below. Obviously, Hybrid Saiyans has a ton of options, so there's a lot of stuff you can do. Let us know what build you're going to run, and if there's any units you think I should have talked more about, let us know and we can continue the discussion down in the comments. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Master Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store. Check out the rest of the playlist, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.